there's no such thing as the narcissist necessarily, or when at least when people are talking about that, what they mean usually is a malignant narcissist. That means somebody that has NPD,
Yeah.
that whose narcissism is unhealthy. There's healthy versus unhealthy. If they're on the unhealthy level, which means the borderline level. An interesting little, side bit is that, borderline personality disorder in many ways is just what we call female narcissists. Like if you notice that men don't really get diagnosed borderline. They get diagnosed NPD.
Right.
But borderline is sort of an unhealthy narcissism. And healthy narcissism is, it allows you to take risks. It allows you to take on massive amounts of responsibility. You think well of yourself enough to
Yeah.
lead.
Yeah.
So that's CEOs, that's entrepreneurs, that's visionaries, that's Elon Musk, that's people like that. And that's not saying there's no hint when when I say that's like something bad. That can be difficult or challenging to interact with if
Right.
somebody, especially if they have like the world is telling them that they are great, that they,
Right.
and they have evidence of it.
Yeah.
So that's its own thing. But at the borderline level, you can get somebody who is malignant, somebody who is a sadistic streak. Then they're sort of, those are the people that are angry, manipulative. They're trying to fuck with you,
Yeah.
etc.
I would say from this lay person's point of view, I would say, you know what, I'm not a therapist or a psychologist, so my take would be, well, are you leaving a wreckage of people you have hurt? And
Right,
if not, then you just have a particular personality.
right.
And if instead of leaving a wreckage of people you have hurt and destroyed, and people who think you are a goddamn monster, if instead you are one of those leaders, and many people say this of many leaders, he was a very difficult man. He was not really likable, but he was a
Mm-hmm.
great leader, and under his leadership, I accomplished things I never would have accomplished otherwise. And you know
Mm-hmm.
what? That to me reflects the complexity of humanity and leadership and the disagreeable quality, especially in the masculine. That oftentimes great leaders are very disagreeable
Mm-hmm.
people. They're not everybody's buddies.
Uh,
They're not friendly all the time, but that doesn't mean they leave a wreckage of human beings behind them.
right,
Yeah.
right.
I was going to pose this to you guys because I think this was actually a point that maybe we all disagree on the disorder part. Because I'm imagining, like, I'm sure we all have female friends or just women we know who have complaints about their narcissistic ex, right? And then maybe we know
Right.
the ex and we're like, okay, maybe he wasn't so nice to them, but he was also, at worst being an avoidant male. And then you think of, like, let's say the
Right.
Elon Musk to Steve Jobs. I'm sure there are a ton of ex-employees who have this kind of like breakup. I hate them. They're a terrible person. And if, like, say, a Steve Jobs didn't accomplish what he did, or an Elon Musk didn't succeed, we probably would just call them a narcissist. Right?
Well,
It's almost like
I
their
will, I,
success validates,
I will I will let Joseph give you the official analysis since he's a therapist. But again, I would say that I would hold the same standard. I'm like, whether they have accomplished great things or not, if there are a lot of people in their life saying, this is a terrible human being, I suffered because of being in a relationship with this human being, I don't want this human being in my life. I would say any human being who gets that kind of a feedback form from people in his life should look at himself.
sure. And there's a certain, part of the issue, the problem is like these levels of narcissism. Borderline level is still in touch with reality. There's not just there's malignant, but there's also covert, which is looks a lot like an addict. So
A lot like
like
what? An
an
addict.
addict,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, like somebody who, for example, they may have a lot of gifts. They may be very smart. They may be very good at something. They may have shown a lot of promise in some area that didn't pan out necessarily, but they really attached to that as part of their identity.
Yeah.
They know that they're not, the world isn't recognizing them in a certain way, and they feel bad about it. Uh, and then they sort of fall apart around that. Like you said, there's a lot of loneliness. There's a lot of isolation. There's a lot of withdrawal. These are
Yeah.
all things. They still internally they have a grandiose sense of themselves. Like internally, they're like, I'm like, fantastic, and everybody should like me. But everyone doesn't like me. Only some people do. I'm not being rewarded by society, etc. So then, part of the cycle is like isolating and withdrawing makes it worse. But it's sort of like because it's full of pain. Interacting with the world is
Yeah.
full of pain.
Mm-hmm.
So then they withdraw. And what's a great way of withdrawing and isolating? Drugs.
Yeah.
Going into that sort of fugue state.
Yeah. But I
Yeah.
mean, the mind, the thought process you are describing is a very human process.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think
That's actually
anybody failing can go through that process. That I am not anybody who's been dumped would be like, oh, this person just does. It's a very human thought process to think I am not being seen for how good I am, or I'm not being appreciated for how good I am.
Right. But I would say like most of the people most people, especially when let's say they're acting in selfish ways, hurtful to other ways, uncomfortable ways with other people. There often is like there's like a come to Jesus moment where they're sort of like you could see it in their eyes, like they kind of like they go, okay, I've been a dick, like I've been a jerk. Oh my God, I'm sorry. They
Yeah.
pivot, and they change their behavior. They acknowledge how they've been acting, and they seek to remedy it. That's, I would say, the thing that people with NPD don't do. They come to that pivot, and just when you're like, are they going to get it? Are they going to pivot? Are they going to pivot? No, they pivot right back to, but it's not my fault. Well, the world is wrong. I'm right.
This
Okay,
is
let's
why
do.
this is why I've heard therapists say narcissists don't change. This is why they must
Yeah,
say narcissists are very hard to help.
very hard to
They
help.
don't
Yeah,
have self-reflection, which to me is like bizarre because as arrogant of an asshole as I am, I live in doubt.
yeah,
I look at every wrong comment, every nasty comment, and I think, are they right? Let me think
right.
about this
yeah.
for a minute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And someone who's really uh you would probably be more successful in quotes, let's say, or you would move through things quicker if you didn't, right? If you just didn't. It's like that's why I'm looking at it like maybe more from an evolutionary strategy perspective that these narcissistic traits, you're asking a lot of the world, and probably a lot of these people fail so that they end up in this covert state or reclusive state. But for like the 2% who win, they win so big. So it kind of makes sense, from game theoretically, that some percentage of the population would like roll the dice in this way, in an
right.
unconscious way.
Yeah, yeah. And they have good evidence. Like it's hard not to. That's what makes it so. Like somebody like Elon Musk. Um, you really have to. First of all, you have to not have like pathological narcissism to be able to cultivate any kind of humility when you're that
I
successful.
need to slow down. Why are you bringing Elon Musk as an example? I don't know him. Obviously, I've only seen him. But are there stories of people saying Elon Musk is a terrible person? Is he leaving
Oh,
wreckage in his life? Do his employees
no.
hate him?
Well, so okay. Well, I mean, that touches on a whole other area, but
I mean,
actually,
like, is he a decent human being to the people who are important and the common
I,
person on the
Well, a lot of
street?
people don't like him, and I think it's
yeah,
easy to
But
label
why? I
someone
mean,
with power.
like him for what reason? Just because he's big in the world? Because that's their problem.
no,
Well, he makes
How
well,
many
bold
people? How many
statements.
people don't like him because he has mistreated them? How many people don't like him because he's like, I know him. He is
right, no,
hurtful. He's damaging. He
Most public
overruns people.
figures, people criticize them without knowing them, right? They're
That's
going off
just
of his
right,
projection.
public
That's other
actions.
people's projection. If you don't even know the man, if you've had no personal connection with him, and you have such a big opinion of him, to me, your
Yeah,
opinion means nothing.
but that's true of
yes,
everyone, in the
No,
public
it's
yes,
sphere, like
not. No, it's
Trump,
not.
with
If you
anyone.
Well, I don't want. Yes, but I would still say if you want to measure a man, measure him by how he's impacting the people he's encountering. So
right.
do the people who work for Elon Musk say this is a horrible human being? Do his friends and neighbors and girlfriends say this is a terrible person? Are there? I haven't heard anything like that.
No, no, they don't, and that's interesting because, in the sort of public discourse, or the Twitter discourse especially, which influences all public discourse. The thing, like everyone Elon Musk was just a normal person in most people's eyes that people generally thought well of
Yeah,
until he bought Twitter. And then this really interesting phenomenon happened where suddenly half of Twitter, the left leaning, supposedly liberal half, suddenly it was like I watched it in real time. Suddenly there was this immense case building against Elon Musk, that he was this bad person. He was this narcissistic, egotistical, power hungry,
and what evidence did they
meddling.
present? Just because he
No,
bought Twitter,
no
because he's
evidence.
got billions.
Yeah, no evidence whatsoever,
To me, that's
except
yeah. To
that he
me,
said certain things that people disagree with.
yeah.
But um, but I've had people, friends of mine that I really love and respect, and are quite smart, but and they're like, have you heard about what Elon Musk did lately? Like he's such a shithead, and it's fascinating to me because I don't agree at all that that's the case,
Right.
Hmm.
and I've seen no evidence of that, and in fact everyone that does talk about him talks about how no, he really is, surreally intelligent. Like
He
he
is,
can,
but that much I
you
don't
know,
think is questionable. I don't think anybody can accuse Elon Musk of stealing other people's intelligence. He's doing all this
yeah,
himself,
yeah,
Totally.
right? And he
I would
doesn't
argue
seem I
though.
don't he doesn't seem driven by like abject greed.
no, not
People
at
have
all.
asked him about money and he's like, "Yeah, I have money. I can buy whatever there is to be buying to buy in this world, but I mean, so what?"
I
Right,
think why
I
he's
think
put in that category without the disorder or negative connotations is that he definitely is a different kind of human, and he definitely has views, grandiose views that the average person doesn't even come close to.
yes, but his
He has in
grandiosity, he
common with every
lives it
cult
out.
leader.
yeah,
Exactly,
He
right?
lives
That's the point. Like,
large.
he succeeds, right? If
He
he didn't
succeeds at a
succeed,
level that is like that man should be an inspiration.
exactly.
I don't know every Elon story, but this one was in the news some time ago. This is like old news as far as Elon Musk is concerned. There was something going on in Australia where they were having power outages, and he wrote to the governor or somebody of the province of Australia that you got all this land sitting up there. I can set up a charging farm for you that can supply your entire city, and I can do it in 30 days. And the guy wrote back because this is all on Twitter. They're like, is this a joke? Are you actually Elon Musk? And Elon's
right,
wrote something like back, like, I will get it done in 30 days or it's on me. It'll be free. And he meant it.
right,
Hmm.
He's like, I'm going to set up I'm going to solve your energy problems. And he did it.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah,
like, that is admirable. That takes balls. That's like patent level arrogance. When
right,
everybody
Exactly.
says in the Battle of the Bulge, nobody can go there, Patton says, I can be there in 3 days. And he was.
Yeah. But if Patton didn't do that, we would just put him in the bucket, right?
But
That's kind of my point of like he
but
puts himself out there and he actually follows
he
through, and then
succeeds, yeah.
we're willing to put up. I'm not saying he is a
But
narcissist, but
how
if
is
he
there
didn't
any
have those
negative?
traits,
What do you mean willing to put up
my
with
point
what?
is, if he did have those traits, I don't know if he does or doesn't. I don't know him personally. we would accept it because he wins. It's kind of like Michael Jordan can be a dick
I
to his
wouldn't.
teammates.
I would separate the two. I would never merge the two. I would still
Exactly. I'm
say
saying
you
they
are
are
a great
independent, and
basketball
we're
player
willing to
and a
put up with
shitty
that.
human being. We can make that distinction.
Right, but that
People
would
would still be like, "Wow!" Right? He would still have fans. You know, he you know, someone with the goods. I mean, I was thinking earlier when you guys were talking about like a woman who's really annoying but amazing in bed. Like you put up with more than if she wasn't, right? It's like that with any level of competency. Like a winner is a winner, and you're willing to take some shit from a winner. You're not willing to take shit from a loser. And a lot of
right.
the narcissists
Okay.
that end up in therapy, I think, are people with maybe the same traits as the big visionaries, but they just couldn't execute. So
Well,
we just hate them, right? They
but
just end
that's
up
it.
with a disorder
But
diagnosis.
that's why I mentioned Elon Musk. Like Elon Musk is an example of somebody who a lot of people call this sort of boogeyman false name, the narcissist. He's a narcissist, and it's not true. It's more the question is like, is his narcissism like anybody's narcissism? Everybody has narcissism. Everybody needs to have narcissism. Is his narcissism getting in his own way? Is it no longer serving him? Is it out of control? Is it pathological? No, it's clearly not. Like that's the thing. And people
Yeah.
like to, they use that word narcissist to dismiss somebody they don't like. That's all. They don't like the person. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like interchangeable with he's an asshole or
And
he's a
I don't really believe that people always get a free pass just because of their talent. One example that comes to mind is Marlon Brando.
mm-hmm.
I read, I didn't read his whole biography, but Marlon Brando was known for being an arrogant prick because he could be. If he didn't, because in his youth, he was the most gorgeous man there was in Hollywood. And his reputation was if he did not like a director, he would go fuck his wife. If a
Huh.
producer irritated him, he would go fuck his wife.
Huh.
He was vindictive. He was an asshole. He acted in that way. And you know what? He didn't work for 10 years. People said, we don't give a flying fuck how talented you are. Go fuck yourself. We don't want you around.
That
His toxicity caught up with him. The
Yeah.
story goes when Francis Ford Coppola went to recruit him for The Godfather, he hadn't been working for 10 years. They were sick of his shit. He snubbed the Oscars. He told the Oscars to go fuck themselves. He refused to take his Oscar. All this other thing, even that happened later. And he's like, no, nobody wants to work with Marlon. I don't actually even believe in this premise that you could be talented and a dickhead and your dickheadedness will not catch up with you. I think
Yeah, not that it
oftentimes
will
it
catch
will.
up with you, but if he didn't have the talent, he never would have gotten past the first movie.
That's for
Right?
sure. That's for
Yeah, so
sure.
that's my only point is that we give people,
But
a
we
lot of
don't. I
slack.
don't think we do. We
Potentially,
tolerate them a little bit. Maybe their agents tolerate their shittiness. I don't think the rest of the people do. In fact, that's one way to completely ruin your public reputation and persona is to act like such a dickhead. I think that's why they hire PR firms to make sure their public image is good.
Yeah, well, but there is something to like, at some point, like a pathological narcissism is sort of like a cobra stare. It kind of stuns you for a minute, hypnotizes you for a minute, where you go, okay, like, and people will let the person
Yeah.
behave badly for a while, but nobody really likes it, and people are just waiting, like, you know, A2 Brutus, like people are waiting for a chance to stab the knife in when they get a chance.
hmm I do want to bring up another angle to this. Is you guys are familiar with the dark triad?
I
Hmm.
mean, as a layperson, Joseph is trained in psychology. He would obviously know a lot more than me.
Yeah. Well, it's also,
Yeah,
it's, I think I first discovered it because it's talked about in the red pill community as a prescription, right? It's like these are traits that I don't know if Rolo specifically, but that kind of crew says,
really.
women are attracted to Machiavellianism, narcissism, and
Is that
psychopathy
true?
is the
Or
last
did he
one.
make that up? I don't know. Is that actually true? I would question that data first.
Well, I think
Mm.
for if you look at just imagine that thought world speaking to nice guys, let's say the
Yeah.
guy who's super effeminate. you could justify that in such a guy's world, right? Guy, simps a lot, acts like a beta, sub all the time, and then he starts acting a little narcissistic.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's going to get a little more respect. So, well, I did
I
want to. Yeah,
actually
what are
actually
the
have
thoughts
something
there?
to say on this if you
Uh
want,
huh.
because I've
Yeah.
written about this because I've taught courses on how not to be a nice guy anymore. So I've written
Hmm.
specifically on this, which is this is actually the assumption under which the nice guy operates. If you tell the nice guy, stop being a nice guy, he will say, "Oh, so you want me to be an asshole?"
You're right.
And I'm like, no, these are both distortions of masculinity. The good guy, the fully embodied masculine guy, is not an asshole. And I would argue neither is he residing in the dark triad, nor is he a nice guy. These are both distortions. They are
Mm-hmm.
at the opposite ends of the distortion. But the good embodied man, the man you actually want to be friends with, the man you actually want to collaborate with, do business with, work for, have in your life, is a balanced, solid, reliable, loyal man in the middle who is a good friend, who keeps his word, who is strong but not psychopathic,
Mm-hmm.
who knows how to give and receive with his friends and community, but is not a taker and consumer of human beings. I think they're
So you
both
would say,
distortions.
so you would say that the dark triad as a prescription is the overcompensation of the super nice guy.
You know
Let's say.
who I so I will even argue that women are seduced by the dark triad. You know which women are seduced by the dark triad? The women who have never had an exposure to healthy masculine.
Mm-hmm.
These are the women who probably did not have fathers. And their system misfires because their system misfires. They perceive that as masculine strength. They perceive the psychopathy as masculinity because they don't have discernment.
Right. Right.
The women
Yeah.
who had fathers, women who saw examples of good masculinity, will look at those men and say, "Nope, those men are broken. There's something wrong with them." That's not
Mm-hmm.
what a good man looks like. My brothers are good men. My fathers are good men. My uncles are good men, and I know what they feel like. They're reliable. They're good. They're protectors. They are strong, but neither are they Machiavellian, nor are they psychopathic, nor are they
Mm.
narcissistic. They're in fact generous. They take care of people. You feel protected when you're around them as women.
Yeah. Actually, that leads to my other question, Joseph. I know you want to comment on that, but I was watching a lot of NPD videos this morning, and
Mhm.
obviously this it's a trending topic. It's been for the last couple of years. And there's one video about why are we as a culture obsessed with narcissists, and you see obviously there's a lot of content on it, but then it was also like with cults shows about cults or these kinds of obvious narcissistic leaders. There is some interesting fascination where it seems like a lot of women are into this. Like a lot of women are particularly fascinated with cult true crime stuff. And I've
Mm.
wondered, what is the reason, right? Like what is the thing that makes this specific thing so interesting? And I wonder what you guys think, like with what Om you just said. Is it something like this? Like something about this type of topping, if you will, is compelling to a certain kind of person? Man or woman?
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting phenomenon. Uh, like Hell's Angels and mafioso. They have to get their girlfriends from somewhere.
Yeah.
They
I know that. I found that comment very funny. That even psychopaths need girlfriends, so some women are going to find them sexy.
yeah,
Listen,
yeah.
I think women are drawn to masculine strength. I think women will always be drawn to bad boys. But I really don't think being psychopathic or being Machiavellian is really a winning formula for a man in this world. Because the men who do great things, they work with other men. You need to build alliances. You need to have other men trust you. You need to feel. You need to generate loyalty. You need to inspire loyalty in people. And I don't know whether people who are that narcissistic and psychopathic have those social skills to create that.
Well, I think they usually inspire fear, right? Like that's how you get the loyalty through fear. There's the code. Like if you're disloyal, then you disappear.
Okay, but I think so. You are really talking about criminals being able to enforce that. I don't know anybody short of criminals being able to enforce or control people with fear. I mean, who the hell are we talking about here? And
Right.
even Elon Musk, what power does he have over anybody? He's going to fire them if they work for him. Okay, that's about it.
Yeah.
What power could Steve Jobs hold over anybody except you work for me and I can fire you? Okay,
What power
I
Well,
can
does a
get a
cult
job at
leader
Google.
have that doesn't physically force them, right? Like like there's I think something very compelling, and I actually even think something attractive maybe an insecure part of us, and maybe only people with like damaged male role models are susceptible to this. But there's something like kind of parental about someone who maybe is mean for no reason, mixed in with the love stuff. I do think, like the narcissistic manipulation playbook is compelling to a lot of people, not just damaged people. Or
I
maybe
don't know
all
what
people
you
are
mean
damaged
by
for some reason.
narcissistic playbook. You'll have to explain it to me. I don't know. I
Like,
want to be able to understand and
so,
feel
so
into
for
this.
instance, actually, I just did an analysis of. Do you know? Did you guys watch The Sopranos? Like the
Yes,
yeah.
full season? Do
yes,
you remember the scene where it's after Tony gets cancer and he realizes the guys respect him less and he beats up his driver,
I remember
like
that.
as a
Yeah,
show of
yeah,
dominance? And
yeah,
like,
yeah. And then he
you know,
goes out and
and
throws up.
yeah, it's an amazing scene, right?
Yeah,
And obviously, this is an extreme thing. Obviously, physical violence is okay in
yeah,
that world, but I
yeah.
do think there is something about almost the random punishment. And obviously, the driver is kind of looking at Tony as like a father figure, so they kind of already
Yeah,
have this dynamic. There's something
right.
about that; it almost inspires more love because they could all physically beat up Tony Soprano, and like
They
the
could.
guy actually could.
That guy could.
Yeah,
That was
that
the
guy
point of
could.
it. He was really built. He was very strong. If he was
Yeah,
a wimpy, they could have put a cast a wimpy guy in that role, but they hired a muscle guy. But he doesn't
yeah.
fight back. I remember that scene quite clearly. He doesn't hit Tony back.
Well, he
Tony
he
is
Hmm.
just
kind
in
of
the
tries, but
hospital.
he's hesitant, you know. And it's almost
Right.
like, if you're training a Rottweiler, the Rottweiler can definitely destroy you.
True.
But if you train it
Yeah.
well, same thing with horses. Like the horse could trample any person, but if
Right.
you top it well, it'll love
Okay.
you.
So
It'll like accept the spanks.
what's your pointer on that? Tell me what you
Well,
see in
it's
that
it's kind
scene.
of like a growing theory that like, all right, for on the one hand, let's even say they are extreme narcissists, the cult leader type. Part
Yeah.
of what makes them compelling are these traits that we criticize, are the traits that, the exes, the ex cult members, the people who don't like them will criticize, but there's something
Hmm.
Okay.
also compelling in that. And I do think it
Well,
comes down to parent child relationship stuff.
but I even think somewhat like in terms of like when Om was saying like he doesn't think that this is a winning strategy. It isn't a winning strategy in modern civilization. But prior to, say, Judeo-Christian influence on behavior, on social behavior, that would have been a winning strategy. Like, for example, in mating strategy, the natural instincts that we have probably are polygamous or polygynous, and that like hierarchical, uh, ape-like organization of the social uh, hierarchy. So like the most angry, dominant, vicious, violent ape gets all the access to all the women, and that used to work. But then, you know, Christianity imposed monogamy. It imposed the idea that, like, we didn't have the idea that the strong protect the weak is a Judeo-Christian idea. Like it wasn't a widespread idea. Now it's sort of normal, and now it does work. Like now, for example, I think it's true that like how many retiree um, uh, mafia bosses are there? Probably not that many because the root is like you work your way up in this ultra violent world, and then you get to the top, and then where do you go from the top? You usually
Yeah.
sort of like you
Another alpha
screw up.
kills you.
Yeah,
Well,
you screw up and then you die. Whereas you can be Elon Musk or a CEO and you just retire. Like you just people still love you. There's a place for you.
But
You know.
I would like to give you an alternate view on this. I don't think this theory is comprehensive. Okay.
Mm.
I grew up in India. In India, you will see a lot of people who are deeply respected. You will see village elders, you will see family elders, people who are listened to, people who are revered, people to whom people take their problems and conflicts. And when they gently give their advice and they give you suggestions on how to resolve it, people obey.
Huh.
None of
Hmm.
those people are muscle bound. None of those people are aggressive. That respect that they're given as a village elder, oftentimes they're old people and other people are helping them walk. They are not
Well,
driven by
I
violence.
don't think that
No, 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 no,
negates what
no, really,
Joseph said
slow down.
either.
This whole
Hmm.
idea that masculinity is about you are giving examples of Tony Sopranos. These are mafioso gangsters who are not part of our lives, who live by violence. I'm like, in your life, how many times have you succumbed to a Tony Soprano, and how many times you may have yielded to a gentle therapist, to a counselor, to a priest who you respect?
Yeah. Well, I don't
Where
think
have you
those. Hold
placed
on.
your authority? Where have you placed your authority? I don't think we have placed our authority into psychopaths. I don't think we do that. We would have
I don't think these are mutually
spiritual. No, no, no. Hang
exclusive.
on, hang on. We
Yeah.
would
Hold
have
on.
spiritual leaders in India, and they were old women and
Yeah.
men and women of all stature. Movie stars, politicians would go to them, bow down to them, listen to their advice, and they would simply get their advice, and then what they were told they would go do. Now that's power. That power is given to them because we believe they are good. We believe they are virtuous. We believe they are wise. And they have earned that status. They haven't earned it by violence and fist fighting and gunfights.
Well, no one was saying that that's the only way that people like the thing that I was
That's the
throwing out is
example
that.
you're giving
Well, yeah,
of
exactly. I didn't
masculine
say it's
power.
I didn't say it's the only way. It's just like, why does that work? And you know, obviously not until with Tony Soprano or physical violence, but like, you know, we've discussed cases where I think all of us, but I'll speak for myself, was maybe drawn in by behavior that wasn't pleasant by a very charismatic leader, right?
Right.
Like why does that work? That's what I'm getting at. And I think, you know, my greater thing is like, why are so many people, women especially, fascinated by the narcissistic personality type? Like, if it's really so nasty, why is it interesting to talk about for hours and hours? I do
I
think
don't
there's
think,
something primal because the things that you're describing are maybe more evolved, not so. It's not primal driven. Like that those kind of hierarchies aren't based on like,
okay, Ruwan,
you
I'll
know,
tell you,
animal brain stuff.
I myself have had to study narcissism, watch a lot of videos. Dr. Ramani on YouTube is magnificent.
Hmm.
So is Dr. Sam Wagner, who himself is a narcissist. They have put out amazing amounts of materials. This is my hypothesis of why anybody, including me, is curious about narcissists. It is because we have crossed paths with them. Crossing paths with them has created difficulty and pain in our life, and we are trying to understand it so that causes us less difficulty and less pain in the future.
Hmm.
Because I think people with narcissistic
Hmm.
personality disorder, people with borderline personality disorder, their personalities are so different from people who don't have NPD or BPD. You're like, how are these people operating? And how should I engage with them? And mostly the lessons they are telling us is avoid them.
Right. They're
No
they're and
contact. Go no
yeah.
Yeah.
contact with NPD. Do not engage. I think that's the final lesson. I don't think we are fascinated like moth to a flame to narcissists. I think we're just trying to figure out how to avoid the pain we have already endured in our encounters with them.
I disagree because actually I'm getting this actually from a Dr. Ramani video. That's who I was referring to, where she lists like some of her favorite shows, and a lot of the best characters in many shows are narcissists. Tony being one of them. She mentioned a bunch of shows that I haven't watched, but like there's something so fascinating about them. And truthfully, you could argue this about all drama. Like messed up people are more interesting than like a good normal person. So maybe it's that simple. But I think there's also something about this is like we have like an evolved radar. Maybe it's to just avoid them, but I think maybe it's also when shit's going down in a tribal environment without society, maybe you want one in your tribe.
Right. No, no, no. I think that there's some truth to that because and we sort of idolize a little bit narcissists or the you know narcissistic traits because there's something, and this is again, it's not quite the whole picture. We're not seeing the whole picture, but it appears to us that someone high in narcissism feels no pain, like that they're sort of like what these characters you're talking about that are great, they're likable characters, like I don't know, Dexter comes to mind, the sociopathic murderer,
Like
serial killer.
truly talking about psychopathic murderers here. I
But
don't think
but
Yeah.
these characters are presented as anybody we should emulate.
Well, but part of why they draw us to them is that they don't seem to struggle with the same, things that we do. They don't doubt themselves. They don't feel pain, at least on the surface, like we do. They're not conflicted about those things,
This is not what I've heard from experts on narcissism. They're like they feel hollow inside. They are plagued by
Yes,
low self-esteem. They
Hmm.
are full of
yes,
shame. I'm like
some of them.
their internal landscape looks pretty miserable. I wouldn't want to change places with them.
Yes,
But that's not what the public sees,
that's not what the
right?
public sees. Yeah.
But this
Well,
is
I
what
mean,
the experts are telling us their internal reality is like. If the public doesn't see it, is because the public, probably like me, doesn't understand NPD and BPD that much.
Yeah.
They
Well,
say
that's my
BPD
point. I'm
people
not saying
suffer terribly. They
I
say
wasn't
people
making
with
a
BPD suffer
prescription.
terribly. That's why they seek out help.
Yeah. Well,
They say
some of
there's
them do.
right,
11%.
Lower functioning ones do.
Yeah, I heard
right.
11% suicide attempt from people diagnosed with BPD. That is evidence of misery.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of, but we're talking about the ones that are the less functional, people on the narcissism spectrum are, yeah,
Uh,
there's
So,
the ones that are highly functional still have feelings of emptiness, meaningless, etc. But
right.
they're better managed by this adaptation of defensive narcissism, where they cover it up with the grandiosity and the getting one over on you, the manipulating using people
Right.
for validation, etc. It works to a certain extent for some people on that spectrum. It works, and
Yeah.
they never have to feel that meaningless, that emptiness, which lots of people struggle with at times. Everybody has periods in their life where they question themselves or the meaning of life or their
Right.
purpose.
So, Ruwan, I want to offer you a counter proposition to what you're saying.
Hmm.
Right. My proposition is this: that in fact, we, especially men, do need to integrate our shadow. We do need to integrate our monster. And that part is a true part of our journey. That part is driven, and that part actually is attractive. That part actually is attractive to men and women, to see a man who's capable of being a monster, but isn't a monster. And I think narcissists and people with these kinds of psychopathic disorders, they are like the false coin. They represent some of that strength, but they actually are not integrated. So I think we want the fascination, we want the good man that to protect his village, he can turn completely psychopathic, go warrior on you, and paint his face in blood to protect his loved ones. But he should be doing it because he has control over his monstrosity, and he's doing it to
Yeah.
protect the people he loves. He's not just out for himself.
Well,
Well,
And if
before
but
he's
before you
not
say
capable of doing
Joseph,
that, if he's not
yeah,
capable of doing that, he'll get run over by other monsters.
I don't think what we just said actually. Go against each other, because I wasn't saying anything about shoulds. I was just saying there is something there. And what I guess I'm arguing, and maybe you disagree, is that, again, going back to competence and morality are independent. And the thing that's attractive is the competence, whether or not it comes with good or bad morality. Because even with the example you just said, the other tribe who gets killed by that guy protecting his tribe
Yeah.
is definitely calling him a narcissist. He's definitely talking about how, I think it
I
is
don't
a
know.
kind of subjective
They
perception
would
thing.
call him a brutal warrior. I don't think they would call him a
Hmm.
narcissist. I don't think we can call every member of SEAL Team 6 a narcissist, but they are motherfucking killers.
right. Well, Cormac
It's which end you're
McCarthy,
on, though, if they're on your team or not. I,
Cormac McCarthy, who possibly the greatest American writer ever, had a great line where he said that basically the bare truth is a woman knows that a man who isn't willing to kill for her is worth nothing at all.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
And
killer
and
trait is
and
attractive.
but almost the prerequisite to that would be a man who is incapable of killing isn't worth anything at all.
Right.
Is the point Ruwan is making, that women are looking for killers, which I agree with.
Yeah.
They are. They're turned on by killers.
And I
That's
think
why they fall in love with them.
if like a woman or even the general public's decision tree, like subconscious decision tree of like what they're going to be into, the competence comes first. Is he a killer? Yes or no? If he's a no, doesn't matter what his morality is.
Yeah.
Is he a good person comes later, and maybe to your point, the traumatized people or the people with the unhealthy role models are willing to put up with the competent asshole.
I hear you.
I think there is also maybe something in the general public where we'll take the competent asshole over any incompetent person. And you can look at politics or culture for like the NPD thing playing out on a macro
I'll
level
go
too.
along with that. I will take the competent asshole over the incompetent nice guy.
Yeah.
Competence matters.
Joseph, I think I cut you off. You're going to say something?
No, I was just thinking. Was thinking the thought like, will he kill for me? It maybe is one decision tree, but where is if maybe the next one is will he die for me? If they'll settle for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I brought this up when we were chatting the other day in person, that there's a military historian, Gwynne Dyer, who through interviewing like I don't know how many hundreds of veterans, came up with the hypothesis that 1 out of 50 soldiers can kill without remorse. Like they just have this thing where they're immune to PTSD. They have the most kills. They usually end up in special forces compared to the average soldier who like it takes a lot of training. And I'm not saying that's the same thing as a narcissist, but this kind of spread of a small percentage having this like really potent trait, whether or not it comes with good morality, is basically the basis of my argument.
So here's my offer to that, which is I have all the men in my dominant man course watch Band of Brothers, and I recently rewatched the series because I love it so much, and it's just appeared on Netflix. If you have Netflix, you can watch the whole thing for free.
Cool.
And everybody on there, eventually, all the average guys in this cast, which are based on real people, they end up in that category, which is they can kill without remorse. They don't give a flying fuck.
Eventually.
Eventually,
They have to be
because
trained
it's
into
war,
it.
it is what they have to do, and they're trying to kill me, and I'm going to kill them, and it's like this is a routine day.
Yeah, but there's a line in there, and actually I read the book by the real Colonel Winters, like the narrator, because he was a real person. He describes Captain Spears. I don't know if you remember him.
Yes.
He's the guy who runs over the line. He does the craziest stuff.
He's the guy who fits
a
in
real
your
person.
category. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a real person. In real life, he shot his subordinate for not listening to him. But it was the middle of a battle, and he was such an effective leader and killer that they were just like, all right, you really shouldn't shoot American soldiers, but we need you too much. And like, anyway, that's my point. Like, we just put up with them, and there's a small percentage that just has it in their blood.
And that actor who played him was brilliant, and he had that cold glare.
Yeah.
That, this guy can kill like lighting up a cigarette. He doesn't, that's what he's in for. That's what his job is, and he's going to get it done. And he was, talk about being effective. Like the man did not even have a fear response in his body the way they show him in the series. It's just, very effective at his job.
Yeah.
And by that measure, a good leader, because following that man, your chances of survival go up and your chances of success go up with that.
Unless you disobey him.
Unless you disobey him.
Then he shoots you.
Yeah.
Why would you disobey him? You're not supposed to do that to any officer if you're in that hierarchy. So that's on you.
Funny,
if you disobey your officers.
You mentioned Gwynne Dyer because I met him.
Oh, really?
He like a long time ago. He came to my school, and I went to a school which was based on the English private school system, and it was sort of, I mean, not really militaristic, but it had a tradition of like the school had a lot of. There's a big huge wall with names on it of people who who went to my school who died in World War One and World War Two. A big list, like like quite a long list of people who fought in World War One and Two, and they taught a lot of history around World War One and Two because of that, and that's why they had Gwyn Dyer, and he came. Probably I was in grade seven maybe. He came and gave a talk.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting this from a quote. He was quoted in another book I read about the psychology of killing, where he has this passage about what makes a natural born soldier, where he makes this 1 in 50 estimate. Yeah, it's really fascinating. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Captain Spears actually gives this speech to the other guy, I think in the second or third episode. The guy who's afraid all the time. A guy who has hysterical blindness. He says, yeah, this is what you need to do is kill without remorse, kill without thought. The whole war effort depends on it.
Yeah.
This is what you need to do. You need to assume you're already dead so you can function as a soldier and you can kill without remorse and kill with speed and effectiveness. Because that's all. This is a game we're playing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that is the speech of a psychopath probably.
Yeah.
But then again, he's not a loose cannon. He knows how to function in hierarchy. He knows how to take orders, and his mind is clear. And you're lucky. You're very glad he's on your side. So Ruwan, maybe you're correct in that if he was on the other side, your ass would be in trouble because men like that are very dangerous.
Right. He may be a psychopath, but he's my psychopath.
He's your psychopath.
Yeah.
And I think that's a measure. I think you're also saying women measure. Like he's a killer, but he's my killer.
Exactly. Yeah, because I remember seeing documentaries about Tyson a while ago, and they have interviews of his wife, who eventually went to prison for a beating or whatnot, and they're all of these, bits of her speaking about how he's so sweet and he's her. It's like her monster, like her pet monster, who eventually turned on her and bit her. But like you can see the adoration that a weaker man just wouldn't get. Obviously, it's compelling because he's so dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think Tony Soprano had the same appeal to women.
Totally.
His dangerousness and his power was seductive.